It starts with petrol-based passion, becomes a hotbed for high-performance engineering, and eventually leads to the renaissance of an entire brand.
Audi really bet the farm on racing.
2 decades ago, Audi was an outsider looking for an edge.
It's tough to describe how Audi comes to what it is today. There isn't a simple way.
13 Le Mans wins later, they've become one of the most dominant endurance racing teams in history.
We're at the actual manufacturing base of Audi Sport customer racing, with the race cars get manufactured.
Success at the track gives rise to a new kind of supercar for the street.
The R8 has become a symbol of the modern age of supercars.
To stay on top, the brand must now replace its aging icon.
When you have a car like the first R8 that's so instantly recognized, it's going to be really difficult to recapture that same magic.
Recapturing the magic comes down to a machine that's been forged with glory and built to defend the honor of a once-forgotten name. The second generation R8 V10 Plus. It goes 0 to 100 kph in 3.2 seconds. Hits the 200 kph mark just 6.7 seconds later and roars all the way up to a top speed of 330 kilometers per hour.
The R8 V10 Plus is an exceptionally fast car because it has 600 horsepower, all-wheel drive, and a really, really fast shifting transmission with a very responsive launch control.
The second-gen R8 V10 Plus is the fastest production machine to ever wear the 4 rings, and one of its most expensive. The base model starts at just over 165,000 euros.
The R8 is kind of the all-around supercar. These things are blisteringly fast on a racetrack. They change directions so quickly. These are amazing sports car to drive, but they're also incredibly livable.
The R8 saga is a tale told through racing, and it starts nearly 2 decades ago. In 1999, Audi debuts an all-new prototype, the R8R.
We entered racing business in the Le Mans series from '99 onwards.
The R8R is a 610 horsepower open cockpit racing machine. Little does anyone know just how transformative it will be.
We won in 2000 at Le Mans, and that changed how we saw ourselves.
The 24 Hours of Le Mans is perhaps the most famous endurance road race in the world. When the R8R wins it in just its second running, it changes the destiny of the brand.
Since the early 2000s, Audi has won more often than not and more often than anyone else. It's been almost an unbroken streak.
Starting in the year 2000, Audi wins Le Mans 5 out of 6 years.
They got into endurance racing, and they spent a lot of R&D money learning about how to make a car not only go fast, but last in extreme conditions for a long time, because you got to be able to do both to finish a 24-hour race.
Success on the track coincides with perhaps the greatest automotive renaissance in history.
They've come from nothing to one of the top luxury auto brands in the world in the span of about 2 decades.
Transforming an automaker is hard to do in half a century, let alone just under 20 years. And a single concept car is the key.
It led to a show car in 2003 at the International Automobile Salon at Frankfurt. People really didn't expect us to bring a sports car, especially a middle motor sports car that had a performance.
Obviously, the Le Mans concept comes out, and people say, what is that thing? It's this beautiful mid-engine supercar, and it looks like nothing else. It's got these great lines, and people loved it.
It was very, very secretive. Not many people knew what we were going to show, and then all of a sudden, holy cow. The industry was also surprised, I think, and no one expected us to do that. It was a big cannon shot for the whole industry.
It's a blast felt around the automotive world, and 5 years later leads to the introduction of the R8 supercar.
So the introduction in 2008 literally changed everything. It's a way like kids started pinning pictures of the R8 to the wall.
A couple years later, they come out with the street car, and it looks a lot like the concept, and that's hard to do. A lot of concept cars are, you know, crazy pie-in-the-sky things, all these ridiculous design elements. Audi pulled it off.
Supercars are always fast. Often, they're also full of exaggeration. The first-gen R8 isn't. The machine's radical style, game-changing reliability, and heady performance help transform not only the supercar space, but also Audi itself.
They weren't there yet, and then you get this incredible halo car, and everybody wants an Audi.
The Audi R8 was so radical when it first came out. It had a design that was so different than the establishment that it attracted attention wherever it went. You see one on the road today, you still think, oh my God, what was that?
The R8 really made the supercar approachable and dare I say accessible. It was not nearly as expensive as a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. It was more comfortable, it had more cargo space, it was reliable.
Today, the second generation of the machine comes to life just outside of Neckarsulm, Germany, inside of the Bollinger Hofer factory.
We're in the factory here where the R8 is produced, and it's fantastic to see them moving along here like spaceships, hanging on production rigs and really like sculptures.
The 230,000 square meter facility is home to 491 highly trained craftspeople.
A lot of this car is hand-produced, and these people, they've been specially chosen, they've been specially trained up to do what they do.
On a good day, they produce just 20 machines. Each is a blend of industrial mass production know-how and handcrafted perfection.
We build a lot of cars in different segments, and we take the benefits of that mass production style and combine it with a very, very specific, highly customer-oriented manufacture.
The state-of-the-art facility is part of a €25 billion infrastructure improvement project.
It's always a treat in this industry when you get to build a factory for a car. We were able to set it up how we wanted it, so it's really a very nice place to build cars, and the guys do a great job.
We moved into this facility in 2014. The novel idea of a production facility like this one, a production center like this one that brings an R8 to life is naturally a special challenge.
Here with the new Bollinger Hofer factory, it's really cool. That's why I became a designer. I wanted to create things. I wanted to create cars and bring a smile to people's face when they see the car.
It will take artisanal welders over 2.5 days to construct a space frame. The body isn't just sexy, it's also cutting edge. The R8 is built using a modular sports car system known as the MSS platform.
The MSS is a platform which provides the technical basis for the R8, the basic structure of the car.
The process begins by loading aluminium pieces onto a jig and carefully locking them into place. This guarantees dimensional accuracy during the early stages of the build.
It's magical when you see them sitting there and they're welding it all together, hold the pieces together so that it doesn't move. It's really, really something special within the industry.
The completed sub-assemblies transfer to another jig and form the basis of the front, mid, and rear subframes. Each weld is both difficult and critical.
Aluminium has a lower melting point, and you have to be careful how you do it so that you don't just melt the metal.
There are over 89 meters of finished welds in a single R8 frame. That's almost the length of a football field. Next, a worker uses an advanced etching machine to hand stamp the vehicle identification number.
Wir sind hier im Bereich der Unterbaulinie.
We are here in the underbody line area. At the front end, mid-coach and rear end are connected here for the first time. We refer to the whole process as marriage.
Unlike many robotically driven car factories, the R8 body shop is a very hands-on affair.
Wir sind so unterschiedlich, weil wir hier in einer Manufaktur
We are so different because we build everything by hand. Our individual output is lower compared to the robotic assembly you're familiar with, while at the same time, we have the same expectations for car body precision.
Today's robotic welders are extremely accurate. It takes 4 technicians and welding both sides of the car in unison to compete with them. This guarantees a perfect match.
Wir schweißen die Untergruppen komplett.
We weld the underbody together completely by hand. That means we take the pieces, fit them together manually, and weld them together, all the while ensuring that the assembly dimension remains true.
Finally, it's time to put the body panels on.
In dieser Station bauen wir die Anbauteile, die Außenhaut.
We assemble the R8 external components at this station, the shell. Here we join the hood, the door, and the side panel, and thereby create 80% of the visible surface and what it comes down to for the customer.
Sichtbar und die das Fahrzeug für den Kunden ausmachen.
The fit is extremely precise.
Wir reden über eine Toleranz von.
We're talking about a tolerance of plus or minus 0.3 millimeters at the joint on a painted car.
0.3 millimeters is roughly the width of just 2 human hairs. The extreme detail is echoed in the tight fit of the roof panel.
Wir kleben das Dach teilweise.
We partially glue the roof onto the frame. We then rivet the roof onto the frame with punch rivets, but we also join it additionally with welds.
The finished space frame weighs just 200 kilograms and looks like a piece of industrial art. Yet it's the silver bare aluminium that harkens back to the brand's racing roots and showcases a very fast future. The second generation R8 V10 Plus is a rocket on the racetrack, an eye-catcher on the street, and the halo car for an automotive juggernaut, all of which almost didn't happen.
Audi for a long time was the other German car company. They weren't well known and they didn't make anything really super standout.
Audi's survival saga begins with the birth of the automobile itself. In 1886, German inventor Carl Benz bolts a single-cylinder engine onto a 3-wheeled carriage. The result is the first car.
There is a huge history in automotive brand in Germany.
The success of the patent Motorwagen ignites an industrial gold rush. Germany becomes a hotbed for early automotive advancement.
There were dozens of companies who produced practically everything from a little carriage with a motorcycle engine up to top-class automotives.
Audi, Porsche, DKW, and Vondra are 4 of the companies jockeying to become major players in the burgeoning field. But their fate changes on October 29th, 1929, when the American stock market collapses. Overnight, $30 billion vanishes, and the global economy hits the brakes hard. It's the start of the Great Depression.
Before the Wall Street crash, we had approximately 50 different companies. Today, 3 are existing.
The The crash is the deepest and longest-lasting economic downturn in the history of the Western industrialized world.
The four companies joined together under the roof of the Saxon Bank. They had money in all of these different companies, and if one of them would have collapsed, this would be a catastrophe for the banking institute.
The shotgun wedding creates the second largest car company in Germany at the time.
The completely different companies joined together, something a bit like today's Volkswagen Group.
The merger secures the Saxon Bank's investment. But rebranding a car maker isn't easy. So the freshly minted company creates a four-ringed logo to pay homage to the four founding brands. Then, in the face of economic adversity, the new company decides to do something bold. They go racing.
You need the folks to remember the name of this company. You can do this by winning races.
2 years after the merger, they introduced the Type A.
Out came in 1934 the first Grand Prix car. 34 was a year of learning.
24 months later, they're ready to challenge Mercedes on the track.
From that time on, you have two German marques competitive at the racetracks. All the others, they were second or third fiddle.
It's the dawn of the Silver Arrow era.
Germany's racing color was silver. And so you have these really fast German automobiles that the press labels silver arrows because of how competent they are at going high rates of speed.
The car doesn't just inspire a nickname, it also lays the foundation for Audi's racing heritage and the modern supercar.
These racing cars were way ahead of the time. Mid-engine, rear-wheel drive, center fuel tank, driver sitting literally between the front wheels. He has to feel what happens in his back. 6 liters capacity, 520 horsepower, and has immense output. Top speed, 330 kilometers.
What was revolutionary in 1936 isn't all that different from today's high-performance machines, including the second-gen R8.
The best handling sports cars always have the engine between the occupants of the vehicle and the rear axle, sort of sandwiched in there.
There are specific benefits to having a middle-engine car. You have the majority of your weight set up between the wheels. It was a conscious decision when we started the R8 program.
Today's R8 continues the legacy thanks to its mid-engine layout, but it also offers a new carbon fiber twist.
We wanted to combine the benefits of carbon fiber in this particular vehicle. It's the first time we've used it in an Audi.
Inside the second wing of the Bollinger-Hofer body shop, painted aluminium shells meet carbon fiber on the factory floor.
We have a long tradition of building aluminium space frame cars. And we also have a tradition of using specific materials in specific places for the most bang for the buck.
Adding carbon fiber helps reduce weight and increase stiffness.
The stiffness of a car is like integral to the sensations you feel while driving it. A car that isn't stiff is going to feel loose and sort of sloppy because you can feel the entire body flexing and moving around you.
The carbon fiber elements reduce weight by 15% and help the machine become 40% stiffer at the same time.
Being stiffer is better because it allows all the other bits to work how they're planned to. When a car is bending or twisting, then a suspension has to work in variable planes and in variable directions. If it's all very stiff, then you have the suspension working on very specific lines in very specific ways, and you can set it up much more precisely.
Building a lighter and stronger machine begins with the installation of the carbon fiber firewall between the occupant cell and the engine bay. Next, they set the transmission housing into a mechanical jig. A robot applies glue, then a craftsperson swings the piece into place, before yet another robot rivets it together.
When you lay carbon fiber in certain directions, it's very, very stiff. In other directions, it bends. We've used it along the middle of the car, in order to stiffen that up.
At the next station, workers install the carbon fiber B-pillars and rivet them by hand.
Aluminium and carbon fiber don't necessarily like each other as materials, so you have to be very careful about how you prepare the aluminium to be bonded with the carbon fiber.
A finished body is now ready for a detailed quality control check where a specialist looks over each and every corner of the machine. Finally, after nearly 3 days, a new R8 is ready to hit the final assembly line. Since the dawn of the 21st century, Audi has dominated endurance racing, racking up both individual victories and overall constructor championships.
Audi's chief success in racing has come in endurance racing, and that's kind of become the go-to field now for automakers who are really looking to take what they learn in racing and apply it to the street.
In 2011, the brand debuts the R18 prototype. The machine adds 4 more wins at Le Mans and takes home 2 more World Endurance Championships. Each victory reinforces the company's racing pedigree, while also influencing future products for the street.
It's an extreme environment which helps the street car because you have to focus on different things.
It's not an easy thing to do. Everyone says that their racing technology influences their street cars, but to actually put your money where your mouth is and build a street car that actually incorporates that knowledge and actually performs like you expect it to is really remarkable.
Racing meets road going inside the Bollinger Hofer factory. This is the home of the second-gen Audi R8. The assembly hall is a high-performance oasis where the future and the past collide one car at a time. Inside these walls, they manufacture the base R8, the top-of-the-line V10 Plus, and build the space frame for the LMS racing variant.
The
R8 assembly line consists of 15 steps, and currently we assemble 17 cars per day.
Every 30 minutes, partially built machines advance to the next station on the line, and it takes 7.5 hours to fully assemble just one machine.
Wir befinden uns zu Beginn der Montage. Die Karosserie.
We're at the beginning of the assembly. The body moves from frame assembly tool on the automated vehicle guiding system onto the assembly line.
The guided sleds are one of the few forms of automation inside the factory. Yet, even though they're robotic, they can actually think and see for themselves.
Man sieht, ich werde nicht überfahren. Das fahrerlose Transportsystem startet.
You see, I am not run over. The automated guidance system begins automatically. If someone is in the way, like I am now, this horn sounds and the light is red. Once I move to the side, it starts up again.
The facility looks high-tech, but the cars are born in an old-school way. For the new R8, the team relies on the talented craftspeople who have to fit up to 50 parts in a predefined sequence and master up to 12 different tools per station.
Wir befinden uns hier am Anfang der Montagelinie.
We're at the start of the assembly line on day 1. Assembly begins by mounting the parts located directly on the chassis.
Workers apply protection covers to the freshly painted body panels, take the doors off, and add insulation to the machine. A station later, they use a sliding hoist to move the wiring harness into the car.
In dem Fall ist es so,
The weight of the wiring harness is so great in this instance here that there is an aid so the technician doesn't need to lift with his back, but can instead move the piece ergonomically to the car.
Worker-friendly tech is a key to the Audi way. Nowhere is that more apparent than at Station 4, where the car is rotated up to 90 degrees.
Der entscheidende Vorteil ist der, den wir hier auch schon sehen.
We see the distinct advantage here. Technicians don't need to work above their heads, but rather are able to work directly in front of them. It's a very, very ergonomic position for the technician at this station. The automated guide transfers the frame to the hoist and then moves to this parked position. Autonomous assembly movements are already a reality here.
Workers add the oil, water, and fuel lines while the car is tilted. Unlike most cars, the R8 has not one, but two fuel tanks.
Dividing the tank in two onto itself has two reasons. A, of course, the issue of space. Secondly, there's of course the following. The amounts of petrol weight, right and left, are distributed very, very low in the vehicle, providing a low center of gravity. Naturally, good performance and good handling.
Workers build up the front trunk and bolt in the wiring harness. Next, two technicians in tandem swing a dashboard into the car and bolt it in place. The instrument panel looks ordinary, but it actually offers a vista into the future of the automobile.
The other super cool thing I love is that digital dashboard. That whole cove, there should be needles and gauges, all one big screen. And it gives you so many opportunities. You can bring up all the information you want. My personal favorite is when you're trying to get somewhere you haven't been before, you make that entire screen your map. You just glance down and you can see when's my next turn coming up, what's the map look like. I know the next 3 turns even. It's a really neat piece of technology.
A station later, radiators and intercoolers are sub-assembled next to the line and installed. A bit further down, an aisle over from the main line, the engine is prepped. A technician swings the 7-speed automatic transmission onto a jig, followed by the massive V10 motor.
Wir befinden uns hier in der Motorvormontage.
We are here in the engine subassembly. Engine subassembly is where the engine, transmission, and their auxiliaries are connected. It's where the heart of the R8, the engine, begins its journey into the car.
If you drove in a first-gen R8, the one real weak spot of that car was the transmission. It wasn't the best, and the automatic was a single clutch. The shifts were slow, they were kind of harsh. This new dual clutch design that they're using, the shifts are instantaneous, they are smooth, they happen exactly when you want it to. It's an awesome piece of technology, and it's great for going fast. It's gonna make you faster, no matter who you are.
Just 8 bolts connect the motor to the transmission, and it takes all of them to get the 610 horsepower to the ground. That's why they go to great lengths to confirm that each is torqued to the exact specification.
Entscheidend an der Stelle ist, und das verwenden wir an vielen Stellen innerhalb
It's crucial at this point, and we do this at various points along assembly, we electronically monitor all critical points of bolt torque. You can see the visual representation of this monitoring here, so that technicians can immediately see where they've tightened and where we are on an input-output image.
It takes just 12 seconds on average to drop the naturally aspirated V10 into the back of the chassis.
We are located at a decisive station pertaining to the engine on the assembly line, the marriage. The R8 marriage, of course, doesn't happen from underneath, as with mass-produced front-engine cars, but rather the R8 as a mid-engine sports car gets its engine put in from behind and above.
While most of the automotive world is moving towards turbocharged engines, the R8 stands out because its V10 is still naturally aspirated.
Audi certainly knows about turbochargers. They use them on a lot of different engines, but there's something about this V10. It's just a kind of unique product. There aren't many V10s on the market, so it's a unique calling point, and it gives them a huge amount of performance.
The rapid-fire installation of the 425-kilogram engine underscores the team's exacting attention to detail.
Wie an vielen anderen Stationen ist Präzision gefragt.
Just like it is at the many other stations, precision is expected. And of course, that goes for the engine. The tight tolerance is key. It can't rock. It has to go tightly onto the designed position. And it does.
After the engine is dropped into place, technicians roll the exhaust system to the line. They use another ergonomically friendly lift to move it to the correct position before they bolt it on.
This car makes so much noise. There's a loud howl when you hop on the throttle. When you make a gear change, it's really nice, positive sound. When you lift off the throttle and downshift, you get exactly 3 backfires. It's like they've calculated each particular sound to make sure it always sounds the most exciting.
A few meters away, on another sub-assembly station, workers prep the front axle differential.
Was wir hier sehen, ist das Vorderachsdifferential.
This is the front axle differential. It and the drive shaft get installed here at step 7, which is of course what takes the R8 as a super sports car to the Quattro level.
One station later, they install the axle along with the drive shaft. Together, the two components form the heart of the car's all-wheel drive system.
All of a sudden, you have 4 wheels bringing that power down to the ground, not just 2. So that's a huge improvement there. You have 4 wheels pulling you out of a corner instead of 2 pushing you out of a corner.
While much of the R8 is brand new tech, the distinct all-wheel drive layout goes back a long way.
Audi tried to establish business in the American market in the early 70s. It was not very successful, we have to admit.
By the 80s, the brand has a foothold on the continent, but is still unknown elsewhere.
In the 1980s, BMW and Mercedes-Benz finally really caught on. They became really popular. Everyone had to have a German car. That was the cool thing to do.
Audi's answer is to fight fame with engineering. They call the philosophy Vorsprung durch Technik, or lead by technology. The heady concept generates a simple idea.
Then comes this Audi Quattro introduction in Geneva at the Geneva Fair. And from that time on, we have that Vorsprung durch Technik.
Quattro is a 4-wheel drive concept that revolutionizes rally car racing during the 80s. The term is derived from the Italian word for 4, but you don't have to be a linguist to understand its importance. During the decade, Audi wins 23 World Championship heats and 4 world titles because their cars can get more power to the ground.
If you look at the first Quattro with these wheel arches, permanent positive 4-wheel drive, 200 horsepower turbo engine.
Success on the rally car circuit brings fame, but little else.
I always say a green Audi 80 with a brown interior. This is typical for a German school parking lot when the teachers go to their break. The director drives an Audi 100. So this was nothing very special.
Today, the R8 is very special, but the installation of the V10 motor and its Quattro all-wheel drive components hides yet another surprise. Even though the engine looks centered in the car, it isn't.
Why is the engine offset? Well, you have a problem when you have to bring power to the front of the car. So the power comes out the back of the motor, and you have a transmission, and then somewhere you got to get it up to the front. So you can either leave the motor in the middle and have your drivetrain at an angle, or you can move the motor over a little bit and go straight up to the front of the car.
At the last station on line 1, workers tighten over 150 connections and install the machine's disc brakes. The shape of the standard disc brake is highly unusual.
They use what's called a wave design on the outer side, so you have the 2 sides which channel heat away from the inside, and then these waves are used then to reduce the physical amount of metal which we're using within the brake plates. Came from racing, came from motorcycles. You saw a lot of that happening in those 2 areas.
Wir sind jetzt am Tag 9.
Here we are at step 9, the work step where the windows are installed. In this particular instance, the windscreen. There is one single robot here, one single piece of automation along the R8 assembly line, the automated adhesive step, the adhesive bead itself, to the windscreen.
After the glass is fitted, craftspeople add the rear tail lights and the iconic engine crossbrace.
Der zweite Teil
The
ist
second stage is about exterior and interior, the parts one can later touch and feel.
hier an diesem Takt.
The rear end is finished at this stage, so right here we're looking at the rear bumper installation.
Einbau des hinteren Stoßdächers.
2 craftspeople swing the rear bumper into place and then fit the R8's retractable wing. A brand new R8 is halfway to the finish line. The majority of its mechanical components have been installed. But it's the bling that comes next that has helped showcase what Audi can do on the inside. In the 30s, Audi fought Mercedes-Benz on the track. In the 80s, they developed Quattro all-wheel drive to defeat them in the global marketplace. But it wasn't until they got serious about the interior of their machines that they beat them on the showroom floor.
One thing Audi does exceptionally well is interior design. The materials, the stitching, it all looks gorgeous.
The R8's interior sex appeal originates on line 2 inside the final assembly factory. The center console goes in first. Then they install the steering wheel.
You have a flat bottom steering wheel that evokes all, great racing cars you've ever seen.
Seats are added.
You also have a very focused appearance. All the controls on this car, all the gauges, everything is centered around the driver. There's really not much for the passenger to do.
One station later, they start working on the machine's signature side blades. The large air openings look like a styling cue, but they're actually a terrific example of function over form.
You got to get air in everywhere you can. The designers want to have a certain design look, and the engineers say, yeah, that's interesting, but we really need a certain number of cubic meters of air coming through to keep the motor cool. So that's a big challenge.
We try to express this Vorsprung durch Technik. The technology that we have in a race car is very functional driven. There's no bling bling and unnecessary features. It's all about the function.
The front bumper or fascia goes on. Next, they pay homage to the company's roots. A master craftsman delicately fits the famous 4 rings onto the bonnet. Finally, they bolt the LED headlights into place. The fuel tank feeder and cap are added. A craftsperson uses yet another assisted lift to bring the doors to the line and installs them onto the car. The machine receives a fresh set of rubber and a quick fuel fill.
Hier am Tag 15.
The moment that always gives me goosebumps is also here in step 15, namely firing the engine for the first time. The first ignition is when the heart of the R8 is brought to life for the first time in this specific car.
After nearly 8 hours of meticulous handcrafting, the new R8 is fired up.
That's what I mean. Starting the engine for the first time. Goosebumps every time. Firing the engine up for the first time is something quite special.
The car looks finished, but it's not quite done with the Bollinger-Hofer factory.
Wir haben hier eine elektronische Wagenbegleitkarte eingeführt. Das heißt, sämtliche...
We use an electronic vehicle checklist to document and save the various steps, processes, serial numbers of airbags, of quality tests during assembly.
Während des Montageablaufs gemacht werden, sind elektronisch gespeichert.
Technicians can call up information about a car at any time to see where it is in the process.
The electronic control station replaces paper inside the factory and is the first of several quality checks. Next, a new R8 heads to an advanced tire alignment station, where lasers confirm that all 4 wheels are lined up and adjusted perfectly. Then a machine takes a quick shower inside a water booth to ensure that there are no leaks. They slowly and carefully inspect each finished machine for imperfections. A lot of supercars might look like they're built to race, but few actually are.
You know, a lot of car makers like to claim that they're using racing technology on the street. And in some cases it's true, in some cases it's an exaggeration. In the case of the Audi R8, there is actually a lot of connections between the race car and the street car.
The R8's dynamic reflexes on a racetrack go back to the very beginning of the second-gen project. Both the road-going R8 V10 and the Le Mans GT3 racing version are developed at the same time.
The benefit of having developed a racing car and a road-going car at the same time is that the racing car gets the hundreds of thousands of kilometers of durability testing. What we get is a testing in an environment. You have no other place where you're able to take a motor and just be so brutal with it as in a 24-hour race.
Before an engine can be tested on a track, it's first abused on an advanced test bench deep inside of Audi's Neckarslem facility, where a technician puts a new motor through its paces for weeks on end.
50% of the car that you're running on in the GT class comes right off of our base car here. The motor, you know, just right up to the transmission, it's 1-to-1.
Every day in the tiny German village of Biberach, on a quiet side street, dedicated racing professionals push high performance to the limit, one bolt at a time. This is a rare look inside the Audi Customer Sport Racing Department, where ordinary R8s are transformed into full-blown racing machines.
It's a great honor. It makes you very proud that you can be part of it, and that it's not just an isolated motorsport program. In Audi Sport, we always do things that matters to the road cars.
Chris Reinke is a man who knows how to go fast, very fast. As the head of Audi's LMP1 program, he leads the charge in winning the 24 Hours of Le Mans and a World Endurance Racing Championship. Today, Chris and his team build and sell R8 race cars for the tidy sum of €359,000.
Audi's paid close attention in ensuring there's a link between the R8 that you can buy for the street and the LMS GT3 racing variant that you can also buy from Audi and go take in FIA GT3 races. The big components that are very similar.
This is the very chassis that you saw leaving the Böllingerhofe in the stage where it's primed. The cage is already welded into the basic chassis, which is the same as on the road car. Now the next step will be to take carbon fiber, race-specific components, to implement them to make it into the real race beast.
Transforming a normal production car into an all-out racing machine is often a complicated affair. But thanks to the R8's unique development process, both variants share many of the same components.
The road car and the race car has been designed at the very same time. So therefore we could influence the design of the road car as well as the road car could influence the race car design.
The second stage of the build, they add carbon fiber structural components to give the car even more torsional stiffness.
Now we are at the assembly place where actually the race cars get handcrafted. You know, we put them up on the stand, and from here we start to assemble the mechanical components onto it.
The racing shop works very similarly to the main factory. Each car is built up bit by bit using part kits.
Well, we have these parts which get prepared in one box. They belong together and then get pre-assembled. So they come kitted together for the next assembly stage to enable the mechanics to work efficiently to assemble the race car in a very efficient way.
Perhaps no part of the R8 LMS machine gets more attention than the V10 power plant.
One of the best features in the new R8 is the drivetrain of the car, right? The engine itself, they use the same engine in their R8 race cars. It's tuned almost the same, and that's always awesome.
This is actually the very same engine that could go into the race car or into the road car. This gives us a great durability for a race car, because usually a race engine after endurance race has to get rebuilt. Our engine lasts a complete season, so even after our Class 1 at Daytona this year, we wouldn't rebuild the engine. That keeps on racing a complete season.
In any given year, the racing department will build around 80 R8 LMS cars.
Well, now the car is completed. You know, the assembly is done. We take it out for a rollout to check all the system, if all functions are working. It comes back in for its final quality check. Our quality guy hooks up all the lists, you know, that everything is perfect. And this is how the customer receives it.
Racing customers aren't the only ones heading to the track. Street-going R8 V10 Plus machines can often be found there too.
What you have here is a recipe for a really quick acceleration time. You have a lightweight car, you have a powerful V10 engine, 600 horsepower and change, and you have a super quick transmission, sending power to all four wheels. You have great launch control, and with that kind of combination, that's just a recipe for great acceleration.
That acceleration launches the R8 V10 Plus from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.2 seconds.
It's quiet. The air conditioning works. You don't mind sitting in traffic in it. It's no different than sitting in any other luxury car trying to get down the freeway. But when you get out to that favorite road, it's an amazing performance car.
Part of the performance comes from the machine's light weight. Dry, the second-gen R8 comes in at just 1,454 kilograms.
The steering is super responsive. This V10 engine is so quick. It revs up so quickly. There's no waiting on the engine to catch up to you.
Keep your foot down and the 610 horsepower, naturally aspirated V10 Plus engine will hurtle you to a top speed of 330 kilometers per hour.
It's a wonderful thing that we don't have forced induction, turbocharging or supercharging on this V10. Modern sports cars are all adopting turbochargers because the efficiencies are hard to argue against or because their countries are requiring them to meet emission standards. Here we have a naturally aspirated 5.2-liter V10 that revs to near 9,000 RPM, sounds terrific, and gives you all the characteristics you want out of an exotic sports car.
The 7-speed, dual-clutch automatic transmission can shift in the blink of an eye. If there's traction loss at either end, the Quattro all-wheel drive system can reroute 100% of the power to either the front or rear wheels. But what you can't do in the car is shift it with a manual transmission.
As a car fan and someone who loves the art of driving, it's always disheartening to lose a manual transmission. Unfortunately, you can't help but understand why. The take rate among customers for manual transmissions is really low. People like the idea of it. Very few people actually put their money where their mouth is and buy one.
When the first-gen R8 debuted in 2006, it helped usher in a new era for the brand.
The first generation car was so popular and so successful, there was a million ways they could have screwed it up.
Whether the second-generation machine lives up to the legacy is yet to be determined.
A lot of people will complain that it doesn't look different enough, and that's the hardest part because it has to look like the old car, because everyone loved the old car, but it also has to look new. And very rarely do you do that kind of redesign and have everyone say, that's brilliant, it looks great, we love it. They didn't ruin the R8 when they made the next generation of it. In fact, not only did they not screw it up, they actually made it better. I mean, it really is a truly impressive update.
It was a lot of late nights. There was a lot of working on it. We had a good start because we had a prototype which was closely related to what we wanted to produce for a final car. So it was a lot of hard work, just working on lots of details, lots of details. It's an incredible amount of details to get a complete car together.